I call this meeting of the full Board of Aldermen to order on Friday, June 25th. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Present.
Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Evans.
Present.
Alderman Page.
Present.
Alderwoman Ingracia.
Present.
Alderman Coder.
Here.
Alderwoman Rice.
Present.
Alderman Guenther.
Here. Here.
Alderman Balmer.
Present.
Alderwoman Martin.
Present.
Alderman Stevens. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderwoman Green.
Present.
Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Peel.
Here.
Alderman Todd.
Present.
Alderwoman Davis.
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Here.
Alderman Collins Muhammad.
Present.
Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaquero.
Present.
Alderman Narayan.
Here.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Present.
President Reed.
Here.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Stevens. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Cone. 23 present.
The quorum being present, we will be led today in prayer by Pastor Romel Parks Weekly from the Sanctuary, Real People, Real Faith Church. Pastor, we're in your hands.
Greetings, everyone. I want to bring you greetings from the Sanctuary Church. We're at 3646 Fairview Avenue in Tower Grove South. I want to first just quickly honor my Alderwoman, Megan Green, for the work that she continues to do, both for the citizens as well as the organizations in Ward 15. And I'd also like to thank this entire body for the opportunity to offer the invocation. Quickly, I want to just begin by reading a passage of scripture that would be the basis for our prayer this morning. It's from Isaiah chapter 1, verses 15 through 17, and it reads, "When you stretch out your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood. Wash yourselves, make yourselves clean. Remove the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Cease to do evil, learn to do good. Seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, plead for the widow." Let us pray. Gracious God, we approach you this morning with great humility. First and foremost, giving thanks not only for your godness, but for your goodness. We thank you for being our strength during times of weakness, for being our conscience during times of doubt. We thank you for always showing yourself mighty on behalf of the powerless, on behalf of the marginalized, on behalf of the invisible. We thank you for this season in particular, as we remember and celebrate the great strides that we have seen as a city and as a nation on behalf of the LGBT community. We thank you for turning shame into pride. We thank you for turning tears into laughter. We thank you, God, for turning mourning into dancing. And where families have been torn apart, God, we thank you for being the mender. Where your children have been stigmatized and ostracized and kicked out of their faith communities, we Thank you for softening the hearts and changing the minds of your people. You said that your house should be a house of prayer for all people. And as we continue to strive to make that a reality, so make it a reality in the halls of governance for this great city. As this auspicious body has gathered today to do the work of the people of St. Louis, we ask that you would grant them your wisdom. The tasks that are before them are not easy. Many of the challenges they face have pre-existed their time in office, but yet we pray that you would favor them with answers. Favor them with the way forward, not only for the city as an institution, but also for the citizens. Give them the wisdom to know the right, the courage to stand up for it. Give them the strength to fight until the work is done. In humility, God, we recognize that we have stumbled along the way. We have not always said the right thing. We have not always done the right thing, but yet you have been gracious to us. So God, because of your kindness, because of your faithfulness, move through these, our leaders, and cause justice to prevail. And we ask these blessings in your great and in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Pastor, we're going to have you back again. That was a beautiful prayer. Let's give him a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you so much. You're free to hang out for the rest of the meeting or and join us. But if you have to leave because you have other obligations, we fully understand. But thanks again, Pastor. Really appreciate you. With that, with that, we'll return to our regular business. We're going to suspend with our regular business to take up our courtesy resolutions calendar. Alderman from the 19th, you're recognized on the motion for our courtesy resolutions calendar.
Mr. President and members of the board, I move that we adopt our courtesy resolution calendar for today.
Moved by
Second.
19th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th. Alderman from the 18th, you're recognized on resolution 42.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, last week you told me I could read the resolution for Ms. Etta Johnson. I would do that first. I had the honor of teaching with Ms. Etta Johnson's daughter, Ms. Ruth Edmonds at Simmons Elementary School, which is in the Ville neighborhood. Her daughter was a great teacher and leader. It is my honor to present this resolution honoring Ms. Etta Johnson, who lives in the Fountain Park area and has been there for many years, and I have been, and is turning 100 years old. Whereas on July the 7th, 2021, Ms. Etta Johnson of the city of St. Louis will celebrate her 100th birthday. And whereas Mrs. Johnson and her husband, Mr. Theodore Jimmy Johnson, were married on September 15, 1936. And to this union were born 5 children: Ruth, Theodore, John, Sheila, and Gail. Whereas Mrs. Johnson was the first Black woman to work at F.W. Woolworth's in Maplewood, Missouri, where she was employed as a cook. And whereas Mrs. Johnson went on to manage the employees' cafeteria for the chemical and pharmaceutical company Mallinckrodt, where she worked for many years providing meals for nearly 1,500 employees each day. And whereas during her decades of services at Mallinckrodt, Mrs. Johnson also spent many years in overalls and hard hat working in a factory, on the factory floor, ultimately retiring from the factory in March of 1984. And whereas Mrs. Johnson, a Renaissance woman with a love for travel, having visited many places from New York City to Hawaii And whereas Mrs. Johnson's travel took her to the 1992 Olympics trials in New Orleans and San Diego for the 2003 Super Bowl. And whereas Mrs. Johnson accompanied her grandchildren when they left to attend college at Grambling, University of Arkansas, Notre Dame University, and Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville. And whereas Mrs. Johnson now enjoys spending her time with family and friends and doing puzzles and adult coloring books. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Alderpeople of the City of St. Louis that we pause in deliberating to honor Mrs. Etta Johnson for all of her contributions to her community and to wish her a happy 100th birthday. We further direct the clerk of this board to spread a copy of this resolution across the minutes of these proceedings and to prepare a commemorative copy to the end of, and that it may be presented to our honoree at a time and place deemed appropriate by the sponsor, the Honorable Jesse Todd. Introduced on this 24th of June 2021 by the Honorable Jesse Todd, Alderman of the 18th Ward. Adopted the 24th day of June 2021 as attested by the President of the Board and the Clerk and the Honorable Board of Alderpeople. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you all the people. And I will continue on with the other resolution. The purpose of this resolution is the complete board up on vacant and abandoned buildings.
Alderman, that you'll get to that when we go to the first reading of resolutions.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Oh, no problem. Let's give a big round of applause and huge congratulations to Miss Etta Johnson on 100 years and a trailblazer. We all look around and think how difficult it is. I hear the young people talk about how difficult it is to get a job. Imagine being the first and then taking it to a new level. That's what Miss Etta Johnson did. So congratulations to her. Let's give her a big round of applause. Congratulations and thank you, Alderman from the 18th, for bringing forth that resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President.
It's been moved by the Alderman from 19th, seconded by the Alderman from 14th, that we adopt our courtesy resolutions calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. That will return our regular order of business. I'll tell you what, I want to think we need to start by just welcoming and congratulating, giving an early congratulations, hopefully, to all of the athletes that are in town, and really pray for them, and hopefully they prevail and go on to win gold medals on behalf of the United States, and to their families and friends and everyone that's visiting the city this week. Let's give them a round of applause and thank them and welcome them also to the city of St. Louis. Special shout out to Simone Biles, and who has been an inspiration to girls and boys everywhere, and 4-time Olympic gold medalist and 2-time Olympian Sam McCulloch. Let's give him a round of applause also. So thank them. And of course, none of that would be possible without the St. Louis Sports Commission. We have a great St. Louis Sports Commission, so let's thank them for everything, and let's give them a big round of applause for all the work that they're doing to bring these great events to the city of St. Louis. We're going to be nationally televised for that. All right, with that, we'll return to our regular order of business. Introduction of honored guests. Any introduction of honored guests? Is Joe Vaccaro today? Let's give Joe Vaccaro a round of applause. Happy birthday, JoJo.
Well, thank you. As always, I'd like to have my friend Greg Meyer as my special guest.
Welcome, Greg. Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from the 8th.
Just to add on with a hearty happy birthday to our Alderman colleague Vaccaro and the Alderwoman from the 6th, Christine Ingracia's birthday is also today. So
Oh, wow.
birthday friends today.
All right.
Oh, wow.
Happy birthday.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from the 10th like to wrap us up.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Today, June 25th, is Take Your Dog to Work Day, which is very easy for all of us, probably, because most of us are at home. But more importantly, in 1984, Prince released Purple Rain, the movie that changed Alderman Vaccaro's life forever in his true fashion sense that we see today. Thank you.
That's a good one for his birthday. Approval of the minutes.
Approval of the minutes dated June 17th, 2021.
Alderman from the 10th, you recognize on approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move for approval of the minutes from June 17th, 2021.
Second.
Moved by the Alderman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in A, B, and C of the agenda and has been placed in the Alderman's mailboxes. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for reappointment to the Convention and Visitors Commission. The reappointment of Ms. Mary Elizabeth Grimes, the reappointment of Ms. Deanna Simbrat, and the reappointment of Mr. Albert Oztek. I respectfully request your approval of the appointment. Sincerely, Tashara Jones, Mayor.
Alderman from the 7th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Convention and Visitors Commission.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move to approve the mayor's reappointments to the CVC.
Second.
Moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Aye.
Dispense with line items 7 and 8. Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? Alderman from the 1st.
Sorry, Mr. President, members of the board, I request that Board Bill 58 Committee Substitute be moved to the 3rd reading calendar, please.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Place Board Bill 58 Committee Substitute at the end of the regular 3rd reading calendar. Thank you, Alderwoman.
Thank you.
Alderman from the 13th.
Hi, I'd like to ask that Board Bill 8 be moved to the regular 3rd reading calendar. Thank you.
Board Bill 8.
There's 8.
Board Bill 8, you said?
Yes.
She wants to remove it from the 3rd reading consent calendar.
Move it to the regular.
Oh, I'm on the informal calendar.
Thanks. I asked when I should do it and I was told anytime, so.
Okay, yeah, but I was asking for board bills to be moved from the informal calendar.
Okay, well, my request stands whenever.
All right, when we get to that.
Thank you.
I'll make note of that. All right, again, any further board bills to be removed from the informal calendar? We'll dispense with the balance of line items 9 through 10. First reading of board bills.
Board Bill 61, sponsored by Alderman Oldenburg, an ordinance to make it unlawful for an individual to lift the door handles or otherwise try the door and locks of successive vehicles to gain entry to the vehicles unless the individual is the owner of the vehicles or has the owner's permission to enter the vehicle. Board Bill 62, sponsored by Alderman Collins Muhammad, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface, and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel in the Essex Place from Marcus Avenue eastwardly approximately 367 feet in the city of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described in accordance with Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. Board Bill 63, sponsored by Alderman Collins Muhammad, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan dated June 22nd, 2021 for the West Florissant, Desoto, East Warne Avenue area. Board Bill 64, sponsored by Alderwoman Martin, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface, and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel in the easternmost 8.52 feet of Water Street from East Davis northwardly approximately 143 feet in the city of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described in accordance with Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. Board Bill 65, sponsored by Alderman Boyd, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface, and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel in Semple Avenue from Ashland, as hereinafter described in accordance with Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. Board Bill 66, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface, and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel beginning at 19th Street and continuing westwardly to its terminus and bounded by Olive, 19th Street, Pine, and 20th Street in the city of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described in accordance with Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. Board Bill 67, sponsored by Alderwoman Middlebrook, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface, and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel in an irregular shaped portion of McCossick beginning approximately 830.5 feet southeast of Humboldt in the city of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described in accordance with Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. Board Bill 68, sponsored by Alderman Guenther, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface, and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel in an irregular portion of 12th Street considered as excessive right-of-way adjacent to 1204 through 06 Lynch in the city of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described in accordance with the Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. Board Bill 69, the number was not used this session. That is the extent of first reading of board bills.
Reference to committee.
To the Public Safety Committee, Board Bill 61. To the Streets Committee, Board Bill 62, 64, 65, 66, 67, and 68. And to HUD's Committee, Board Bill 63. That is extended reference to committee.
Second reading.
The following board bill was reported out of Streets Committee with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 40, sponsored by Alderwoman Alderwoman Tyus, Alderman Todd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Bosley, Alderwoman Boyd, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. An ordinance amending sections 2 and 3 of ordinance number 70333 and containing an emergency clause. The following board bill was reported out of legislation with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 20 as amended, sponsored by President Reed and Alderman Collins Muhammad, an ordinance repealing Ordinance 71025 concerning the establishment of policy for the disclosure of potential conflicts of interest and substantial personal interest and reporting of certain personal financial interests as required under Section 483 Revised Statutes of Missouri, in lieu thereof enacting a new ordinance reestablishing and affirming said policies as required under Section 105.483 and containing an emergency clause. The following board bill was reported out of Ways and Means with a do not pass recommendation. Board Bill 1, sponsored by President Reed and Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance making appropriation for payment of interest expenses, and principles of the city's bonded indebtedness, establishing city tax rates and making appropriation for current year expenses of the city government for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022, amounting in the aggregate in the sum of $1,153,649,859, which sum is hereby appropriated from revenue and special funds named for purposes hereinafter enumerated and contained in the emergency clause. That is the extent of first reading report of standing committees.
We'll dispense with line item 14, perfection consent.
Board Bill 10, sponsored by Alderwoman Martin, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Director of Streets to permanently close, barricade, or otherwise impede the flow of traffic on the block of Virginia Avenue by blocking said traffic flow at the intersection of the block of Virginia and Belle Reve Boulevard. Board Bill 33, sponsored by Alderman Oldenburg, an ordinance establishing the 5700 block of Wall Street Residential Parking District and location and restriction for curb parking within the 5700 block of Wall Street Residential Parking District and authorizing the placement of permit parking only signs and prohibiting the parking of any vehicle which does not display the required permit and providing a penalty for violations and contained an emergency clause. Board Bill 35 as amended, sponsored by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, an ordinance establishing a two-way stop sites at the intersection of Clarendon Avenue and Vernon Avenue, regulating all traffic traveling northbound and southbound on Clarendon Avenue and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 36, sponsored by Alderwoman Middlebrook, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface, and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel in City Block 3444 as bounded by East Holly, Board, East Athlon, Prescott, in the City of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described in accordance with Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. Board Bill 53, sponsored by President Reed and Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance pertaining to the transit sales tax imposed pursuant to Section 94.660 as adopted by the voters of the City of St. Louis on August 2nd, 1994, pursuant to Ordinance 63168, creating the City Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund, directing the Treasurer of the City of St. Louis to deposit funds received pursuant to said sales tax into the City Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund, Account 1, appropriating $10,523,000, containing the severability and an emergency clause. Board Bill 54, sponsored by President Reed and Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $20,110,000 as described in Section 94.600 through 94.655 Revised Statutes of Missouri 2000, as amended for the period herein stated, which sum is hereby appropriated out of the Transportation Trust Fund to the Bi-State Development Agency for transportation purposes and containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. Board Bill 55, sponsored by President Reed and Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance pertaining to the transit sales tax imposed pursuant to Section 94.660 Revised Statutes of Missouri as adopted by the voters of the City of St. Louis on November 4th, 1997, pursuant to Ordinance Number 64111, creating the City Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund, directing the Treasurer of the City of St. Louis to deposit funds received pursuant to said sales tax into the City Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund, Account 2, appropriating $10,523,000 from the said sales tax for the period herein stated to the Bi-State Development Agency for certain purposes containing a severability and an emergency clause. That is the extent of perfection consent calendar.
Alderman from the 10th, you recognize on the motion for perfection consent.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move we adopt the perfection consent calendar.
Moved by Alderman from the 10th, entertain a second on that motion.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 19th and the Alderman from the 26th. Any discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we adopt our perfection consent calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Board bills for perfection.
We have none.
Third reading and consent. Alderwoman from the 13th.
Thank you. I ask that Board Bill 8 be moved to the regular third reading calendar. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Place Board Bill 8 on the regular third reading calendar.
So noted.
Third reading consent.
Board Bill 7, 24, 25, and 30 committee sub.
Alderman from the 10th, you recognize on the motion for the third reading consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move we adopt the third reading consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 10th. Entertain a second on that motion.
Second.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 27th. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus,
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook,
Aye.
Alderman Bosley, Alderwoman Evans,
Aye.
Alderman Page,
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingracia,
Aye.
Alderman Coder,
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice,
Aye.
Alderman Guenther,
Aye.
Alderman Valmer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin,
Aye.
Alderman Stevens, Alderwoman Schweitzer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Green,
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg, Alderwoman Peel, Alderman Todd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis,
Wait a minute, aye.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Aye.
Alderman Collins Muhammad,
Aye.
Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro,
Aye.
Alderman
Did you get that?
Ryan,
Aye.
Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro,
Aye.
President Reed,
Aye.
Alderman Bosley, Alderman Stevens.
Aye.
Thank you, Alderman Bosley. Alderman Stevens, Alderman Oldenburg, 27 aye votes.
By vote, you sustain the motion, Alderman from the 10th, and third read and finally passed the aforementioned bills. Third reading, report of engrossments, and final passage.
Board Bill 58, committee sub.
Ah.
So,
Yeah.
is that okay? Or you-
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we'll take that one first.
Board Bill 58, committee sub, sponsored by Alderwoman Tyus, an ordinance recommended by the Parking Commission making appropriation for a payment of the operating expenses, capital expenses, including lease purchase agreements, and debt services expenses of the parking divisions of the Treasurer's of the Treasurer's Office for fiscal year July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, in the sum of $17,773,082, including $1,367,290 for capital improvement, and containing an emergency clause.
Alderman from the first, you recognize on the third reading, final passage of Board Bill 58 Committee Substitute.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move to adopt Board Bill 58 Committee Substitute.
It's been
Second.
moved by the Alderwoman from the first and seconded by the Alderwoman from the eighth. Alderman from the first, please proceed.
Mr. President, members of the board, Board Bill 58 is as the clerk read, is an appropriation for payment of operating expenses for the parking division. We brought in the new parking treasurer along with the parking commissioner and chief of staff. We had questions. The alderman from the 22nd rightfully asked a question about an appropriation, which is the Office of the Financial Empowerment. It was a line item, but it was not detailed. They did send us back over a detail, which I sent to the members of the committee. That is why I had put it on the informal calendar for us to answer questions. Some of the questions that the alderman from the 22nd had, because we had addressed some of the things that he had from when he was the chair before, which was they put the expenses but not the revenue. So this time in the board bill, we actually added the revenues. And so some of the questions that he had was, what was the percentage of the it's $491,010 that goes to the Office of Financial Empowerment. And his other question was the number of jobs, positions funded from the above mentioned amount. And 3, what percentage of the treasurer's budget goes to the Office of Financial Empowerment? So the answers were from the total allotment of $491,010, $211.79 goes to salaries, accounting for 43% of the budget. We approximate that 33% of that additional amount goes to benefits, bringing the salary and benefit total to $281,688, or 57% of the budget. They went on to say that they raised money and they had people who gave money, including myself. I donate every year to the Office of Financial Empowerment, my husband and I, because I think it's such a great thing that we learn about how to manage our finances. And also because we've given so much money to tax abatement and TIFs and millionaires and billionaires, that anything that we can do to bring our people up to so they understand how they're managing their money and what to make sound financial decisions was something that was very important to me. And especially even sometimes you think you're making good financial decisions when you go to college. A lot of us went into college and we got student loans. And then what happened was these student loans blew up. They became a very different thing. And so now people are having to make decisions about going a couple of years to junior college and then going to college, because just going straight to a 4-year college, it used to be that they didn't start your interest on your loans to after you got out of school, and they gave you 6 months to 8 months grace, and all of that changed. And those are the kind of things that you have to learn about with financial empowerment. And so I myself do donate to that cause. But anyway, going back to the actual figures, he said that by them raising money, they lowered the salary cost by $68,502.98, which lowers the total budget by 18%. The results in the salaries and benefits being reduced to $213,185.02, or 43%, down from 57%. Lastly, he said that of the total $211,796 for Office of Financial Empowerment salaries, $160,290 is funded from parking funds. That is for a total of 4 positions. And that also he answered that 0% of the treasurer's budgets is allotted to the Office of Financial Empowerment. So those were the questions that were asked. I did send it to the members of the committee. I want to apologize. I get sometimes 50, 100, I mean, just outrageous amount of emails. And so he actually sent it. I asked for it maybe Wednesday or Thursday, and he sent it the next day, but I didn't see it for a couple of days, but I did get it over yesterday. So I want to apologize to the committee members, because I would have sent it over as soon as I seen it, but I didn't see it as soon as I would have liked to.
All right, thanks. Alderman from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the Alderwoman from the first yield?
I will.
Alderman from the 22nd, please proceed.
Thank you, Alderwoman. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to ask my germane questions during the hearing. I was a little insulted to be told that my question was not germane, but hopefully the new treasurer learned something from that experience. I'm a little confused when the report says 0% of the treasurer's budget is allocated to the Office of Financial Empowerment, salaries and benefits. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the treasurer's budget because this is the parking budget, but the confusion came with, see, when you make those donations to the Office of Financial Empowerment, those funds still must be allocated by law. And so I don't know how, and I was chairman for 3 years, but well, I didn't deal with the OFE side because that's actually the treasurer's budget. But I'm curious as to how the treasurer's office accounts for those funds, those donations that come in, as we account for when we do grants and receive monies into the general revenue. So I will probably want to talk more about that in maybe a Ways and Means meeting, but also I think it's a little misleading to suggest that salaries are offset in some kind of way because you raise funds. Salaries is absolute. Either you make $100,000 a year or you don't make $100,000 a year. And whether you pay for it out of this pot of money or that pot of money, it's still the salary. So it's a little misleading to suggest that, well, I'll take that back. It's not that misleading. I just read this wrong. It's funded by, so the salaries, 211,796 is salaries for OFE, but only 160,000 comes from parking funds. And I guess that's where it led me to believe, well, how do we account for those additional funds? So anyway, I appreciate your due diligence and supporting me of getting the information. And I think it's important that we do understand how those funds are expended. And I will be supporting the parking bill. I didn't have any real objections to it, but again, I do think as an alderman, I'm entitled to ask questions and inquire about people's budgets. So thank you again.
Mr. President, may I respond? May I respond, Mr. President?
Sorry, I was muted. I didn't know. Yes.
And I want to say to the alderman from the 22nd Ward, whatever other questions you have, just because this bill gets passed does not mean that we don't ask questions. For all the years that I've been at the Board of Aldermen, I probably ask more questions than anybody. So I am never, ever going to try to mute an alderperson from asking questions. That is our job. I have argued that when we haven't asked enough questions. So whatever that you still are uncomfortable with, I will go back and try to get the answers.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 14th.
Will the Alderwoman from the 1st yield for a question?
Alderwoman from 1st, will you yield to the Alderwoman from 14th?
I sure will. Thank you, Mr. President.
Alderwoman from 14th, please proceed.
The document you were referencing, was that shared with all of the Board of Aldermen?
No, it wasn't really part of the board bill. It was some questions particularly that the alderman from the 22nd had. If you would like, I can share them with everybody. That's not a problem with me. I just sent them to the street committee because that was just part of our questions.
I'd like to see those just for my reference.
I will send it to as soon as we're finished, or if you want me to now, I can send it to all the members of the board. I can send it to my secretary and have her send it to the members of the board.
That's fine. There's no hurry. I asked because, as you said, we get so many emails. I was wondering if I overlooked it. I was looking in our folder here and I didn't see it. So
we need to have a second email account that's just for us doing our business. That's what I think now, because it just it's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. You got that right. That's another discussion. We'll move on.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Alderman from the 1st, you recognize the close.
Mr. President, members of the board, I renew my motion that Board Bill 58 committee substitute be third read and adopted.
It's been moved by the Alderman from 1st that we third read and finally pass Board Bill 58 committee substitute.
Previous roll.
There's been a request for previous roll. Hearing no objection, motion carries.
I want to thank the Alderman for the 22nd Ward for working with me. This works. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Board Bill 8, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 3810 Watson Road redevelopment area.
Alderman from the 23rd, you recognize on the third reading final passage of Board Bill number 8.
Yeah, it's only the third one that I've done in 12 years.
Hey, Alderman, would like to make a motion for the passage.
Yeah, I'm taking motion that we pass this out.
All right.
Second.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 23rd, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th. Alderman from 23rd, please proceed.
So the way this worked is SLDC approached me and asked me if I would support this. They are the ones who do all the background paperwork. This results in more jobs staying in the city, a company or a daycare not leaving, and it results in a higher, not lower tax. The tax they will be paying will be 50% higher than the tax that was there previously. All they're asking for is a 50% for 5 years instead of having to pay 100% of the improvement. This puts 30 jobs in the city. And again, this is all vetted by SLDC. I know everybody wants to beat me up on Facebook saying that the 23rd Ward doesn't deserve development. I don't choose whether or not we can do these developments. SLDC puts these bills together. I did not write this bill. I don't understand the big problem, but I'm open to whatever questions that the Alderman from the 13th that felt that she wanted to move this far. But this does not, this is about jobs. It's about a company that could have easily moved 3 blocks away and been out of the city. It's about SLDC talking to me, telling me that this is a good deal. And again, this does not result in less taxes. It results in a larger, more tax. They're going to be paying more taxes. And in 5 years, even more again. So anyway.
Any discussion? Any discussion? All right, Alderman from the 23rd, you recognize the close.
I'll close on this, and I'm not going to be
23rd. Alderman from 23rd. I'm sorry that there was a delay in the hands coming up. We had the Alderman from the first. Her hand popped up first, and then the Alderman from the 11th was right behind it. So Alderman from the first.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I probably vote no against most tax abatements and TIFs. I am going to support this. I'm going to tell you why. What the Alderman said from the 23rd Ward is that he does not do a lot of tax abatements. I don't believe that you never do tax abatements. Once in a while, you have to do them. If all the wards in the city followed the first ward and the 23rd Ward, we would not have the tax abatement problems that we have with the schools. So I'm going to support it just because he hardly ever does them. So once in a while, you're going to need to do them in wards that even people think that you shouldn't do them. But when you look at the totality of what he does, and he and I have had this conversation often about we don't do it. I fought TIF in my own ward when I was the 20th Ward and didn't give it to him. So, but every once in a while, all of us might need to do something, even the most critical of us of tax abatement. And if we only do a few, 3 and 12 years, that's a very good percentage. If I could go back to the 17th Ward, which I have big problems with, not the current alderperson, but the previous one, my God. So, and the 6th has had a lot, the 28th have had a lot, the 7th. So to have 3 and 12 years, he's really decreased what used to be from previous aldermen who did a lot more. So I'm going to support it just for the fact he doesn't do them most of the time. And everybody might need to do one once in a while. And that doesn't make that the 23rd Ward needs a lot of tax abatement. But if you do one every 12 years, I'm good with you. So I am going to support this board bill.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I understand what the Alderwoman from the 1st is saying. I get that. And, you know, I think that's kind of why we all need to not throw stones from time to time. But, you know, every ward is different too. And some wards just may not need it as much, or certain neighborhoods. You know, I kind of represent a mix of neighborhoods, and I've said no in certain neighborhoods where others I've considered. But I just wanted to quickly ask the Alderman from the 23rd, do you know what these jobs are?
Would you like to?
Would
you like the Alderman from the 23rd to yield? Alderwoman, would you like to request the Alderman from 23rd to yield?
Yes, please.
Okay. Alderman from 23rd, we yield the question to the Alderwoman from the 11th.
Yes, there's no problem.
Alderwoman from the 11th, please proceed.
Thank you. Do you know what these jobs will be paying?
I believe, and to be honest with you, I can't tell you for real, but I believe they're $15 an hour plus. It's daycare workers. Right now there's a daycare there, and my understanding is that they're, you know, and all this is through the SLDC. When I talk to them, my understanding is that they're going to increase it by like 15 or 20 more positions for a total of 30. But I really don't know. You know, I have really had no contact with the owner of the facility. The ones that I was approached from SLDC on this.
I understand. I mean, that's one thing we can do as aldermen is ask those questions. You know, how are they going to do this? What are they going to do?
And I did. It's so rare that they, you know, because I know other people have asked, and usually, you know, anybody that asks me, I say, you got to talk to them. It's pretty rare that they feel that this, like anywhere in my ward, is acceptable. I think they went with this because it's such a short term, plus it actually results in a larger tax, not a lesser tax. And that would be my assumption of why they felt that it qualified. They're the ones that do all the paperwork.
Right.
I don't think any of us has ever, you know, and I agree. You know, this, like I said, this is the 3rd one, so really, I'm learning as I go. It's pretty rare for the 23rd ward to get any tax abatement. I think this one, it was the creation of more jobs, and again, it wasn't really a tax decrease.
Sure, I just wondered what they fit into as far as being an employer goes.
I think that my understanding, I'm thinking that they increased the jobs. I don't know the answer. I can try to find out, but I believe it. I believe from what I understand, I believe it's at least $15 an hour, but I don't know that for a fact.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the inquiry. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know more.
Thank you. Alderwoman from the 14th.
Will the Alderman from the 23rd yield for a question or two?
Alderman
Sure.
from the 23rd, Alderwoman from the 14th, please proceed.
Do you know what the value of the improvements they're doing to this property is?
You know, I don't. I'm wanting to believe it's like $1 million or close to that.
So they
It's
will be
substantial.
paying. They will be paying taxes on whatever value they add to the property at the rate of 50% of that value added, correct?
Yeah, my understanding is that they'll be paying, it results in a tax increase of 50% over what was there now, or 50% of the improvements, which is substantial. Right. And then in 5 years, the other half kicks in.
They'll pay for the full amount.
100%, yes.
And I think just as I rise in support of this, I think that we need to be mindful of these individual tax breaks as they come along and not wholesale say that, they're all evil. I mean, if we have a noted business staying in the area for, a 5-year tax break at 50% of $1 million improvement, I don't think that's giving the store away. Plus, they're going to be bringing in more jobs and taxes on those people doing commerce in the area. I think we have to look at the big picture of what goes on. And many wards do not have a whole lot of tax abatements, myself included. So, to denigrate somebody for allowing somebody to come in and trying to hold on to what is here and not destabilize the neighborhood, I think we need to look at the big picture, not just be petty and, deny tax abatements because it's a tax abatement. But I support your bill, Alderman Vaccaro, and that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for Alderman from the 14th, Alderman from the 24th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Will the Alderman from the 23rd yield for a question?
Alderman from the 23rd,
Sure.
yield for question. Alderman from the 24th, please proceed.
Thank you, and thank you, Alderman. Just one quick question. So I'm just kind of curious if this passes the but-for test. Would this project happen without this abatement?
I don't know that. I was approached by SLDC. I don't know. They just said, I honestly don't know. I mean, if you feel that, vote against it. I know they've started it. But,
No, I will say,
I'm just saying, I don't know the answer to that question.
sure, and I do appreciate the fact that you don't bring abatements on a regular basis. I'm just trying to understand this particular one a bit better. So at the moment, is there the daycare in there?
No, it's next door to that. And then they're building they're building this thing right next door to that one.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Alderman. And with that, I'll yield.
Thank you.
Alderman from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I inquire of the Alderman from the 23rd, please?
Alderman from the 23rd, we yield the question to the Alderman from the 8th.
Yes.
Alderman from the 8th, please proceed.
Thank you. And thank you, Alderman. I don't want to belabor anything, but I wanted to know, so this is a daycare facility. Do you have any idea how many slots for children will be expanded into this new building?
I don't know much about this. I was approached and asked from SLDC. I got a letter from, I believe his name's Zach, saying, would I support this if this is brought forward? And I said, sure. So I don't really know a lot about it. If I would have known that these were going to be a bunch of questions, if had anybody sent me these questions, I certainly would have tried to get answers. And had they would have been asked in committee when SLDC was there to answer them, they could have answered them. I don't really know the answers.
Okay. Okay. I was trying to look up a little bit more information about the daycare, and I know that we do have a severe shortage of daycare spaces for children in the city. And so I'm inclined to support this because they will be paying more taxes, and the analysis along the strategic use plan from SLDC is in line here. And I think it looks like the daycare also accepts state subsidies for children and that kind of thing. And so I wish I knew a little bit more about the business. I think that would be helpful. And so maybe that's just a note for all of us going forward, that when there are projects in spaces that are a little bit more questionable for development, maybe that we try to get a really good picture of what it is that the business is doing coming in. But I'm inclined to support this because I think increasing the taxes that are already being paid, like you said, this is going to be an increase in taxes, this is not going to be a decrease in them. And we desperately need to support early childhood education in the city. And these daycare spaces are few and far between. So if this is an expansion, I think that that's a good thing. So thank you, Alderman.
No, thank you. And yes, maybe I should have looked more into it. This is something that I've done so rarely that actually I just told, and I believe his name's Zach, but the guy from SLDC, I said, are you going to be at the meeting? Because I really did not look much into this other than that very rarely do they ever even ask me. And this was when they called and said it fell within. And the one question I did ask was, so are they going to be paying less? I didn't even know how that worked, to be honest with you. And they're the ones that explained that it actually is resulting in much higher taxes, not less taxes. And then I think over the 5 years, if I remember from the committee hearing, and I'd have to think back, but I think over the 5 years, the savings is something like 24,000, I think.
Alderman from 23rd, I think the Alderman from the 8th is has her answer. I think we're good. And then
Okay.
Alderman from the 25th. Alderman from the 25th, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excuse me?
Yes, you recognize.
Thank you. You know, I've gone back and forth on the issue myself, but I think it's important to put some context around some things. You know, when I was chair of the Neighborhood Development Committee, we went through a process to essentially streamline the application process for tax abatements. But as most of you are aware, the Neighborhood Development Committee really only hears tax abatements for residential properties and residential developments under $1 million. Anything that's commercial and or over $1 million in residential would go through the HUD's committee. But at the time that we created that, kind of concurrently, SLDC was working on the model that Jonathan Ferry put together for commercial development. So I would presume that this project, being a commercial project, would have been assessed and analyzed underneath that particular model, which does basically pertain to the entire city, kind of irrespective of the MVA classification that impacts the abatement that we would typically provide for residential properties throughout the city, and those are on a gradient. Some neighborhoods aren't even eligible for it, or rather census tracts, I should say, versus neighborhoods. And then some, particularly in North St. Louis, we have a more generous incentive for them for residential projects underneath $1 million. And so we all, as a board, at the time that we went through that process, agreed to kind of those parameters and kind of set of boundaries, if you will, for incentives. This being a commercial project, it doesn't necessarily need to adhere to those, but it was refreshing to see that SLDC recommended and the LCRA board recommended only a 5-year abatement for a property in this part of the city, and then also only abated at 50%. So we still receive 50% of the future revenue. The schools receive 50% of that future revenue. The other taxing jurisdictions receive 50% of future projected revenue. So I think that that's a healthy approach to incentives as well. And I do want to echo my colleague from the first ward. I hadn't even really thought about that particular component as I was going through this thought process myself. But the alderman from the 23rd ward, I can't recall him having a tax abatement bill in the 12 years that I've been down here. There may have been one alderman, one other, but I think it was like a dentist office or something like that. But I guess from my perspective, dentist office and daycares are both things that we're like sorely in need of more in the city. And so, for me, it's actually easy to think about, these types of businesses are also often either ran out of people's homes where they're not paying commercial taxes, or they're run by nonprofit organizations who also don't pay real estate taxes. So this is a for-profit business that's largely, operating in a very challenging business environment that's providing a vital service to our community. And if they want to continue to expand their footprint in our city and have more opportunities for young people in our community, especially I believe as the Alderwoman from the 8th Ward have a pretty significant population that's subsidized by the state due to low mod income requirements. And so those are, that's a huge factor for me, when considering whether or not we should be incentivizing businesses such as this. And so, I mean, it's certainly, a bit of a pickle, I'll call it. I don't like seeing tax abatements handed out in Southwest City, period. Just as much as I don't like them handed out on the Central Corridor. So, the 17th Ward, the 28th Ward, the 6th Ward, the 7th Ward, and certainly parts of the 5th and 18th and 10th. I've kind of gone through, the numbers, I've gone through kind of just my own reconciliation process, and certainly think that 5 years at 50% in an area that doesn't often see abatements, and then also for a particular business type that we sorely need, in this city, I think is something that I lean in voting in favor of this particular bill. So I know I don't want to inquire of my colleague from the 23rd because I think I've heard pretty much all he's got to say on the particular issue at this point in time. But I do want to just share my own kind of thought process, if you will, with respect to this particular board bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 13th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I asked for this to be moved so we could have this discussion. We can't be afraid to talk to each other about this sort of stuff. It's not petty to discuss tax incentives. The public schools presented to our Education and Youth Matters Committee that $126 million has been lost by the public schools in the last 12 years. That's a lot of money. We've lost thousands of people from the city of St. Louis in that time. And why do they say they leave? They say they leave because of concerns about crime, concerns about the public schools. And so if we don't discuss tax incentives that are being offered in neighborhoods that are doing well, I mean, what are we all doing here? I think it's really important to have these discussions. It's not petty, it's not personal, it's important. This is our city. We're the leaders of our city. These are discussions we're supposed to be having. And I do really appreciate the time that everyone's taken to discuss, why this might be sort of different than what might normally be seen or has been seen with other businesses. And I really do appreciate the input from all of my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman from the 1st.
Mr. President, members of the board, I want to compliment the Alderwoman from the 13th for having the courage when you're new to stand up and start asking these questions. I was there 30 years ago, and the Alderman from the 28th, Dan McGuire, would sit behind me and say, "Okay, Trouble, go ask your questions." So he got me on my road many years ago. Ask all the questions you need. If you don't get them in committee, ask them. And this is the time to ask them. So I want to compliment you. It made me formulate because I had been going back and forth. So it made me formulate and really think about how he and the Alderman from the 23rd and I, we don't do tax abatement. And I have been for 30 years railing against it. So it's very seldom that I will. I really do. I like what the Alderwoman from the 8th brought into the mix and the Alderman from the 25th. And that happened because you asked questions. So always ask questions. If no one else will support you, I will, okay? And again, I'm still gonna support this bill, but I just wanted to support you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 23rd, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we third read and finally pass Board Bill number 8. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans.
Aye.
Alderwoman Page.
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingracia.
Aye.
Alderman Coder.
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Guenther.
Aye.
Alderman Balmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin.
Aye.
Alderman Stevens, Alderwoman Schweitzer,
Present.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Green,
Present.
Alderman Oldenburg, Alderwoman Peel,
Aye.
Alderman Todd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis,
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Aye.
Alderman Collins Muhammad,
Aye.
Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaquero,
I'm going to abstain.
Alderman Narayan,
Aye.
Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd, Alderwoman Navarro,
Present.
President Reed,
Aye.
Alderman Stevens, Alderman Oldenburg, Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
23 aye votes, 1 abstain, and 3 voted present.
By vote, you have third read and finally passed Board Bill number 8. Report of engrossments.
Board Bill 7, 8, 24, 25, 30 committee sub, and 58 committee sub.
All other business being suspended, the president shall in open session affix his signature hereto to the end that these may become law. First reading of resolutions.
Resolution 48, sponsored by Alderman Todd. Complete board up of vacant and abandoned buildings.
Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the first reading of resolution 48.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I am making the this resolution.
Alderman from the 18th, are you seeking to send it to committee, or are you looking to pass it today?
I'm looking to pass it today, Mr. President.
Okay, so before we get started, you want to just ask for unanimous consent?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to vote for unanimous consent.
Objection.
There's been an objection to unanimous consent. I didn't catch who that was. I think it was
Alderman Boyd.
Alderman from the 22nd. There's been an objection to unanimous consent. So Alderman from the 18th, your options are you can send it to committee, and then when it comes back from committee, which be hopefully you can get it through committee next week, and then we'll have it up next at the next full board meeting, and you can discuss it there?
I would rather to have it passed now.
Okay, so to do that, you need to move to suspend the rules to adopt and pass it out today.
I move to suspend the rules, Mr. President.
All right, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 18th. Entertain a second on that motion.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 15th. Any discussion? Any discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we suspend the rules for purposes of adopting resolution 48 today. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Evans. I'm sorry, Alderwoman, I didn't catch that.
Aye.
Thank you. Alderman Page.
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingracia.
Aye.
Alderman Coder. Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Guenther.
Aye.
Alderman Valmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Morton. Alderman Stevens. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green.
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Peel.
Aye.
Alderman Todd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd.
No.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Coder. Alderwoman Martin.
Hear me, I did say aye.
I'm sorry. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Stevens. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Collins Muhammad. 23 aye votes, 1 no vote.
A vote, sustain the motion. Alderman from the 18th. Alderman from the 18th, you're now recognized on resolution 48. Would you like to move for adoption of resolution 48?
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. President, and members of the board. Mr. President, I would like to move for the adoption of resolution 48.
Moved by the Alderman from the 18th. Entertain a second.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 1st. Alderman from the 18th, you're now free to discuss resolution 48.
The purpose of this resolution is to complete the board of vacant and abandoned buildings. Whereas the city and land reutilization authority only board up the first floor windows and doors of vacant and abandoned buildings. And whereas only boarding up first floor entrances is not an effective means of preventing damage to such buildings caused by weather, and more importantly, it does little to prevent persons from entering and vandalizing these structures or using them for unlawful purposes. And whereas not completely boarding up vacant and abandoned buildings and allowing their further decay from weather and abuse is a threat to the health and safety of the communities in which these buildings are located. And whereas the decay resulting from not completely boarding up abandoned and vacant buildings ultimately leads to their destruction. And the act of tearing down these structures presents its own threat to the health of communities, as these old buildings contain asbestos, lead, and other chemicals and materials that are known to impact the mental and physical development of children and cause respiratory diseases and cancer. Whereas the city incurs financial and cultural costs from the tearing down of buildings that have been left to decay from not being completely boarded up. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Alder people of the city of St. Louis that we recognize the need for completely boarding of vacant and abandoned buildings, and we urge the Building Division and Land Reutilization Authority to protect the health and welfare of our communities and cultural and architectural fabric of our city by taking the simple step of completely boarding of vacant and abandoned buildings. We further direct the clerk of the board to prepare a copy of this resolution to be presented at a time and place to those deemed appropriate by the sponsor. Introduced this 25th day of June 2021 by the Honorable Jesse Todd, Alderman, 18th Ward. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members of the board.
All right, Alderwoman from the first.
Mr. President, members of the board, please add my name to the resolution. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Add the Alderwoman from the first name to the resolution. Alderman from the 24th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Would the Alderman from the 18th, excuse me, would the Alderman from the 18th yield for a questioning?
Alderman from the 18th will yield for questioning until Alderman from the 24th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, Mr. President, I will yield.
Okay, Alderman from the 24th, please proceed.
Thank you. So I just have a couple of questions since this isn't going to be, it doesn't appear at least that this is going to be going to committee. So in your kind of vision for this, would it call for the building division to go back and to board up all the existing second stories of buildings, or would that be would that be moving forward in board ups?
What would happen, first of all, there is no cost attached to this at this time. Secondly, I have already seen and talked with people, two companies that have been doing board ups. It would not only require board up on first and second floor, it would require board up on all floors. So there's no cost attached. This is a resolution. I intend,
sure.
Okay, so therefore it will recommend to the building division, it's only a recommendation. This is not saying they have to, without the, because it may be a cost. We have to, later I will come back to the board if necessary and deal with the cost, but there is no cost attached. This is just a resolution to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So,
my only concern is, you know, kind of balancing the harms here in between the worker safety issue of having, you know, building division folks go into these buildings that have, you know, become dilapidated over the years and trying to board up second and third floor windows, and balancing that with the harm of as you've very eloquently put in this resolution, when these buildings fall down, you know, they contain asbestos, lead, things of that nature that are certainly not good for the community. And I mean, we all know nothing good happens in abandoned buildings. I'm just trying to figure out what your vision on this is, and it sounds like it is to go back and to board up existing buildings, not just to do this moving forward. So that answers my question.
And Mr. Alderman from the 24th, the buildings can be bought. These trucks these two companies that I talked with said the buildings can be, if they appear dangerous, can be boarded up from the outside.
Okay, that answers my
So they
question.
would not present a danger. They have this forklift, and I can share the phone number, the name with you later on. They have a lift. They can lift people up. They went up in the 18th ward up to I think it was up to the 6th floor, and they just lift them up in a basket. And then what they would do, if they would repair it, they would board them up from the outside if they appear dangerous. Let's say if you had a condemned building and it appeared to not be structurally sound, the board up people would decide whether to go in or not to go in. Or the building division would, if it's a condemned building, would make that decision before any action is taken. So they would be given all the safety precautions that the experts need in order to before they board it up. So there would be no risk to the workers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And with that, I'll yield. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman from the 23rd,
I have no place to raise my hand, but I would actually support a board bill on this. You know, on some of these buildings, it might even save the building from further damage and possibly make the building fixable. So if you decide you're going to make this into a board bill and put some real authority behind it, count me in. I would certainly think, whether from the inside or the outside, preserving these buildings is not a bad idea. And in some cases, just because you board the downstairs, it doesn't keep the rain and animals from going in from the upstairs. And some of these are definitely buildings that could be preserved and not necessarily taken down. So if you do decide to go that route, count me in. I'd be more than happy to help. I think it's a good idea.
All right, thank you, Alderman. Alderman from the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. With the Alderman from the 18th yield for a few questions.
Alderman from the 18th yield. Alderman from the 26th, please proceed.
Thank you. And I want to thank my colleague from the 24th because he stole some of my words when he thought about your vision. I can say that I remember this vision, Alderman Todd, back when we served as committee people together. This was part of the Todd plan. So I admire your persistence in getting this done. But I did have some questions. And I know that you said that this is just a resolution and there's no cost behind the resolution, but the work would incur costs. So have you speaking with the building division or anybody from the building? I know you spoke about some outside companies, but we have the building division here in place. Have you spoken with them about what the cost would be to carry this work out?
Again, I have spoken with them. I told them that there would be no cost at this time. This would be a resolution that the board could hear, that the building division could hear. I passed this same resolution when I was a Democratic committee man with you. I passed it before you became a Democratic committee woman. So I passed it twice on this Democratic Central Committee. Mm-hmm. At no time. So the answer is I've talked with the building division and I let them know it would be no cost. I wanted to pass it and do what the honorable committee alderman from the 23rd ward said, present this to the board, and signed on saying he would actually put some teeth behind it. And I was hoping in the future, after you hear it as a resolution, that we could come back and fund it so that we could, and there's a program called the NS program. And this program was passed and there's money available, but I would give you an example of why the 23rd Alderman was right. There's a building on the corner of Whittier and Cook Avenue that has been there for and it's a beautiful building, but now, and I submitted that building because the NS program only spends up to $50,000. But this building has been sitting in the 18th ward for the last 40 years. At first, it could have been saved, but now it costs more than the $50,000 that the NS program can pay because of law. Now that building gonna have to be torn down, and that structure, if you ever drive by Cook and Whittier, I would like for you to look at that building, how beautiful it is, the kind of architecture. The main point I'm making is that we would actually say, in the 18th ward, there are 2 or 3 buildings that actually will have to be torn down because they sat there so long in inclement weather that those buildings would cost beyond the cost that the NS program is willing to fund. So the answer is yes. I talked with them. I told them the same thing I'm telling the board, that there's no cost. This is an idea that I presented to them, to the Central Committee, to the Building Division, but I wanted to present this idea so that as the 23rd Alderman and my co-sponsor, the Alderwoman from the First Ward, as more people sign on, I decide this is a good idea to save tax monies, to save our structure, to save lives. And I think the Honorable Board does believe in saving lives, saving illnesses, and saving tax money. Then I think we do have the money, because this is a money maker. It's both helps mentally and physically, help mental illness and physical illness, because eyesores and grass and other, and a shrubbery and everything and other things, studies show that really cause mental illness. When we are here to reduce crime. When we have those type of buildings, unfortunately, people use them to commit several crimes, and also it reduce fires, because again, 3 doors down from where I live, fire started because squatters. Unfortunately, we have homeless people. And what people do when they are homeless, it is more comfortable to live and sleep in an abandoned building than it is to sleep outside. So the other thing is that with that building being fixed up, homeowners are eyes and ears where they can watch out for each other. When we talk about schools being closed, schools gonna continue to close unless we stop tearing down buildings and bring some people in to fill the classroom. We cannot have 5 or 10 people in a classroom and running a whole big old school when we've torn down all of these buildings. It also hurt businesses. For example, I have some businesses in the 18th ward that had to double their price, they had to increase their prices because the customers they used to have, the buildings were torn down. So therefore, it hurts the business people by tearing down this building. It hurts the schools. It hurts the churches. It increases crime. It increases danger by fires. I remember in these abandoned buildings when a little girl was decapitated. They never found this little black girl in it. And then in the 18th ward, I can share the news article with you where years ago, a woman was tied up in a vacant abandoned building and died in the cold. That woman could have been you, my friend. She was a woman who she's made an image of God. She's a black woman, and she's as much of a human being as anyone else. And when this little girl, I have daughters, that could have been my daughter. That was somebody's daughter. That little girl didn't deserve to have her head decapitated in a vacant building. We should do everything we can to get rid of vacant buildings. We should either fix them up or tear them down.
Absolutely. And I agree with you 100%, Alderman Todd. I really do. And I'm glad you brought up the point about the homeless, because what I can say is in the 26th ward, it's almost like a lot of these squatters and the homeless, and they turn into trap houses with people using drugs in them. As soon as we board them up, they come and take the boards down and they go back in, and I have to get back on the phone, like I'm sure a lot of my colleagues do, and appeal to the building division to get them boarded back up. I know there's no cost related to a resolution, and we all understand that part. I think we were just asking questions just as a getting ahead of it, of how if we did implement this, which we understand and we know it's a good idea and it would help, do we have the capacity? Do we have the equipment, the manpower, the capacity to do it? It's just a head start on it because I think, again, we are all in agreement that this is a good idea, but I think we want to support you in every way we can with getting the information. And that's why I asked if you had talked to the building division. So thank you so much for yielding. And again, I am inspired by your passion and your persistence on getting this TIDE plan passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Committee Woman, for your kind words. And not committee woman.
Yeah, Alderwoman.
I'm sorry, I went back to the Central Committee. I was only 25 years. So if you hear me say I'm a committee man, it's only because I said it for so long. So I've only, so thank you, Ms. Alderwoman. Sorry for misnaming you.
Hey, Alderman from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. With the Alderman from the 18th yield.
Alderman from the
I'm sorry, Mr. President. Go ahead.
To the Alderman from the 22nd. Alderman from the 18th will yield to Alderman from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I will yield to the Alderman from the 22nd.
Alderman from the 22nd, please proceed.
Thank you, Alderman. I just want to be clear. The main intent of this resolution is to board up the entire building. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Alderman from the 22nd.
Okay, so the building division, they do board up the buildings and secure them in a way that people just can't go in and out today, right?
Well, they vote them up on the first floor, and they do go in and out.
Right.
In the 18th ward, because I go and check, and I often find windows but on this and what this resolution requires, and I've seen them jump through the second floor, get ladders and go through the second floor window since they're open. So I climb up to the second floor and then let their friends in. I drive through the warden, so I've seen them go through, even though they're boarded up on the first floor. If they have trouble kicking in the door on the first floor, they'll go through the second floor, but they'll get a ladder. Some of these people, these people, they are desperate. They need a place to stay. They have plenty of time. They don't have jobs. They don't have food. They don't have shelter. They don't have clothing. They don't have medical care. They have all day long. And then some of them just get out of the workouts and other places in jail, and they go right. They let them right out in the street. So they do anything to stay out of the elements. And we should be ashamed of ourselves. So the answer is some of them jump up to push each other up and hold each other. I've seen them hold each other up and climb up to the second floor.
Best place. Okay, Alderman. First of all, I'm not opposed to having this discussion. The reason I wanted to send it to committee is because I think we'd have had a better, robust discussion with all the stakeholders that are involved. The building division, I heard some good questions. The question about, our employees, how would they be impacted if they had to actually do it? Maybe could it be contracted out? But I just think it would have been a little more healthier discussion if we could have had the building division before us so they can explain to us, how it would work and also what type of costs associated with it. Certainly there's no cost associated with having a resolution. It's just a document that's requesting an agency or someone to do something. But certainly if we had a board bill, there would be a fiscal note attached to this. I've seen this movie before. I've had this discussion before. Casey Star Triplett, the former Alderman from the 6th Ward, had a board bill, and we had this discussion about 10 years ago. And it fiscally, it just wasn't possible to achieve, but things have changed in a decade. So that's why I really wanted to have the conversation in committee about this, because I think it's important to ask questions of the right people that would have to carry out this activity. So that was my reason for objecting to unanimous consent. It's not about, I didn't want to have the discussion, but I just think we would have had a better discussion in committee. So thank you for yielding.
Thank you, Mr. Alderman from the 22nd. And also I want to go on record that Alderman, the president of the board, when I first, my late daughter and I endorsed him, had agreed to the TIDE plan. So he's a man of his word, so I'm sure he will lead this with me to make sure that we get the money.
Good luck.
And no, I said, sorry, I said absolutely, and it's very, very important. Alderwoman from the first.
Mr. President, members of the board, so I'll go back a little further than the alderman from the 22nd ward. We've been having this discussion about boarding up buildings since the 1990s. And so what happens is people decide what's important. People always talk about money. One of the problems we have is not just the boarding up of the first and or the second floors, the third floors. It is that we don't do the best practice in boarding up. So it makes it very easy for people to go right back behind the boarding up and take it down. And that was because years ago, a decision was made by the previous mayors not to put the money that needed to be put into boarding up. When I came back in 2013, a young lady in my ward was drugged into a vacant building. Thank you to the police. She was a student that had very high grades, but thanks for the police and the police, John Leggett emailed me that night and they were frantic because this young lady went missing that morning. She was on her way to school. And she actually was drugged into a building in the 22nd ward because I butt the 22nd ward, and she was sexually abused and sexually assaulted. But because the police did such a fantastic job, she was found. They went through dumpsters, they went through vacant buildings, and she was found. I helped she and her mother find another place to live, unfortunately outside our city, but I've kind of kept in contact with her over the years, well, her mother, and she's doing great. But I don't ever want to see another young lady drugged into a building like that. And I often have conversations with the building commissioner because he and I have served together for a very long time in my capacity as alderwoman and his capacity in the building division. And we will not be able to do all buildings, but if we had a commitment, first of all, to do buildings the best practice of boarding them up, don't just run a few screws in them, to actually board them so people can't just come and pull them down, that would slow people down. If we could do some second floors, it is too dangerous. And then you start to talk about a cherry picker, but we could start to separate the buildings that could be done easily versus the buildings that maybe need some other work on it. So we need to have a plan. Long as you just pass it down and kick it down the road, it doesn't get done. So 30 years later, we started having this conversation in 91, 92, and here it is 2021. And the reason why it hasn't been addressed is because no one has affirmatively said we need to do this and then started to do it. You never get everything done at once, but we seem to be able to get stadiums, new stadiums, move the stadium across the street so they can get more tax abatements, soccer stadiums, football stadiums, hockey arenas that we didn't even tell them that the Board of Aldermen, did not say that they could be in there rent-free, but somebody over at those alphabet soups, they changed it. And so now we give them free rent. We tend to make important what we think is important. And so the alderman from the 18th is saying that whatever the obstacles, let's do just like we do when we want to give all this money to stadiums. Let's make public safety of our citizens a priority. And does that cost money? Yes. But let's have a plan. Let's start working on it. Let's stop saying, well, we can't do it, it'll be too expensive, or some of these buildings can't be boarded on the second floor. Okay, make the different lists. These are the ones that can be. These are the ones that there's a problem with. These are the ones that have to be tore down. But you have to have a commitment, and you have to start putting your dollars where your mouth is and not just pass it along. The mayors that were making this decision didn't have those vacant problems in their communities. They were in other parts of the city and they didn't deal with it, and it didn't matter to them. But it matters to those of us who not only care about the public safety of our citizens, but also the beauty of buildings. I am a rehabber. I hug red bricks. I love them. I hate it when I have to ask for something to be taken down because our brick structure is wonderful, and we have all these beautiful buildings in the city of St. Louis. And if we would put more time into saving them, then they would not become the problems. The other thing is that the reason why we have so many more people now out on the streets is that we closed Larry Rice's place several years ago. And immediately in North St. Louis, we saw a multitude of people all of a sudden, all in our parks, all in any vacant house, because we were so busy saving this group of people downtown who were more important than the rest of the city. I still don't get that. Everybody who moved downtown, I want you to know this. Larry Rice was there before you. I'm going to call on this mayor. Help Larry Rice open his place back. He was there before you. I used to work at the library. When I first moved here in 78, Larry Rice was there. The gay people were there already, and so was Larry Rice, the homeless. And so for us to close down the homeless shelter and then just put the people out into all the neighborhoods is a ridiculous outcome. And we can see it in the north side neighborhoods tenfold. And I am having to tear down houses that were perfectly okay because of our first boarding first floors. There's a lady who died and her house was pristine, but we boarded the first floor and the people climbed up on the roof, went into the second floor homeless, started a fire. We had to tear that down just 2 or 3 weeks ago. And so I'm imploring the new mayor that she take a look at opening back, helping Larry Rice open his shelter back up, and that we get people off the street so that they don't feel the need to be in vacant houses, starting fires. But that even if they do, that we put our money where our mouth is, and that we start to board the buildings properly. And if we can, to board them on second stories. Third stories become a problem, but that's what cherry pickers are for. But these things can be done if that is our will. As long as we make up an excuse, it doesn't become our will. One of the people who used to work for the president when I first got here, Michael, he is an advocate in his community. He paints the buildings and the boards and things like that, and he's an advocate. They put their own funds into boarding that second floor, and just the depression that people in the community feel when you are taking your property and keeping it all up, you're cutting your grass, and it's the city that is depressing your property value by not doing the things that people need. You're not cutting the grass, you're not boarding the buildings, you're not demolishing the buildings. That is so depressing that the city is lowering the community standards in many North St. Louis neighborhoods. I rode Memorial Day. All of my private citizens had their grass cut. The only grass that was not cut was the city. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves. Same thing about boarded buildings. This is something that can we imagine if we lived next door to this. All the great people who think things are so great in other parts of the neighborhood, the people who are having to put up with this, they didn't do this. They didn't make the building vacant. They didn't abandon the building. But that's our responsibilities as city mothers and fathers and city leaders, is that we have to be more conscious. 30 years, I'm telling you, I've been here, I first got elected in 91. 30 years, we've kicked this issue down the street and said, well, we'll get to it. Oh, it's too expensive. This is the year, the 30th year, the 31st year, this is the year that we need to address it. And we need to tell people that they're important. And not one more citizen, not one more daughter should be found in a trash can or in a vacant building. And again, I want to thank the police because the young lady survived and she's thriving, but that could have been a very different outcome. And I also want to thank the alderman from the 18th, because I've heard him talk about the tire plan and things that encompass the tire plan for years. And so every week now he's coming with a part of the tire plan. And I had told him years ago that I would support it, and I will support him. And then we can find out a way to do it. I do agree with the alderman from the 22nd ward. If it goes to committee, we can bring the people in. But just because we bring the people in, if they don't do anything differently, and if the mayor and the comptroller and the president of the board, if we don't look at our budget and say, how can we do this differently, then it doesn't get done. The people in the building division already know the problems. The people who do the board ups, they already know the problems. They can come tell us again and refresh us every 10, 20, 30 years. But at the end of the day, we haven't done anything. And so it's the problem has exacerbated. And so this resolution is just telling people to get started with doing something. And again, I want to thank the alderman from the 18th ward for his persistence in pursuing public safety in our city.
Thank you, Alderwoman from the first ward. And President Reed, when my late daughter and I, when he first ran for president of the Board of Aldermen, agreed that he supported the tide plan. Then the mayor's on the mayor's forum in April, not April, but March, President Reed said that he would keep his word that he promised my late daughter and I when we endorsed him many years ago. And he promised twice. And we have an all-black E&A. Let me repeat that. And most black and white people, in many cases, get their votes from white. White people usually get votes from white people. Black people usually get votes from black people. We do, and let me make this crystal clear, with an all-black E&A, there's no reason why we can't get more money north of Delmar, just like we've been giving money south of Delmar in every place except the black people, and we pay taxes too, period.
Well said, Alderman from the 18th. Thank you. Thank you. Well put. So it's been moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 1st, that we adopt resolution number 48. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries.
That is the extent of first reading of resolution.
Second reading,
We have none.
miscellaneous and unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
Tuesday, June 29th, 2021, HUD will have a meeting at 9 a.m. via webinar. Neighborhood Development will have a meeting at 11 a.m. via webinar. Education and Youth Matters will have a meeting at 1 p.m. via webinar. Wednesday, June 30th, 2021, Parks and Environmental Matters will have a meeting at 9 a.m. via webinar. HUD will have a meeting at 11 a.m. via webinar. Thursday, July 1st, 2021, full board meeting 10 a.m. via webinar. Friday, July 2nd, no meetings. That is the extent of the announcements.
Alderman from the 12th.
Yes, thank you, President Reed and members of the board. I did want to take a little point of personal privilege and apologize to this body as well as my constituents for missing today's meeting due to a funeral in my personal life. So thank you all for your understanding. And then likewise, on a much lighter note, everyone is cordially invited to the 5400 block of Gresham for the latest installment of Club Gresham down here in Ward 12. It is a major block party that we host quarterly. So it'll be this Sunday, the 27th, from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. So all are welcome. And again, my apologies for my incredibly late attendance.
Right, thank you, Alderman. Alderman from the 13th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Today is my parents' 39th wedding anniversary, so I would just like to congratulate them on 39 years of marriage and for being incredible examples to me of what it means to be dedicated to your partner for so long and to put up with 4 children. So thank you very much.
All right.
Oh, wow.
Alderman from the 24th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I just wanted to give a bit of a shout out to our assistant clerk, Sharita Rogers, and STL TV. Yesterday, I know, was a long day for them, and they were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning. We couldn't do it without them, and I just wanted to point that out and thank them for all the work they do. Thank you.
Alderman from the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I have an announcement, but I first would like to stop and ask for a moment of silence for our very own Janice Muhammad Key's sister, First Lady Rachel Hankerson, wife of Bishop Elijah Hankerson, who is Bishop of the Missouri Midwest Ecclesiastical Jurisdiction, in her homegoing. She was a mother, a wife, amazing woman in the community, and I want to make sure they know that we are wrapping our arms around them at this time. So
Alderwoman, thank you so much for bringing that. Please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you.
thank you so much. And also on this Saturday, our brother in the struggle, I'm sure many of you know, Farrakhan Shigag is hosting Black Wall Street on Martin Luther King. So if the rain and weather permits, please come on out and join us. This is the event that was postponed last year due to the pandemic. So I know this year is going to be bigger and better. So shout out to Farrakhan Shigag and hope to see you all at Black Wall Street.
Right. Yeah. Big shout out to Farrakhan. That young man, I've watched him since he was in middle school and high school. He's doing great things. It's amazing to see how he's grown and all he's doing over at the Urban League. Let's give him a big round of applause. Thank you. Alderwoman from the first.
Mr. President, members of the board, it becomes increasingly hard to have meetings, but we're going to have streets twice next week. I'm looking at Tuesday and Wednesday, but look at your calendar to make sure, because I have to get with the clerk to see when we can have meetings, but we will probably have a streets meeting both on Tuesday and Wednesday, if it's possible.
All right. Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Madam Clerk.
So noted.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 19th.
Wait a minute. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. First, I'd like to share that on Wednesday, I'd like to schedule a Ways and Means meeting in case it's needed. We want to be prepared. We can always cancel if it's not needed. Also, I'd like to give accolades to a young man who is at this moment retiring from the Navy after 23 years of service. He was a resident of the city of St. Louis. He attended Parkway West High School, and he lost his mother, who was a single mom, in his junior year. And all of us wrapped our arms around him, got him through high school, graduated from Jackson State, graduated from Michigan State. And when he entered the Navy, he went in and started on his doctorate. He is currently living in Washington, D.C. with his shingle that will be hung after he retires today as a full-blown psychiatrist. And so I'm so proud of him, and there are many others like him. And that's what we've got to focus on. We got to change the culture, the mindset, and wrap our arms around these young people. And just to Dwayne Buckingham, your job well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Should we call him Dr. Buckingham?
Dr. Buckingham, yes.
Dr. Buckingham.
Yeah.
Alderwoman from the 17th.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I just wanted to make an announcement regarding Ward 17. In Forest Park Southeast, from 10 to 12 o'clock, we're going to have a cleanup day. And we're meeting at Manchester and Tower Grove on the corner of Reliance Bank.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman from the 22nd.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I would just like to echo what my colleague from the 26th said. We're very excited about Black Wall Street 314 happening tomorrow in the 5900 block of Martin Luther King Drive in the 22nd Ward. We're praying and asking for all the prayer warriors to pray the rain away so that we can have a spectacular event tomorrow. Really excited about it. There's a lot of hard work that's gone into it. And 2 years ago, if you had a chance to experience it, it was just hundreds of people walking through, people with the pop-up tents selling products, and it was just a phenomenal experience. And we're hoping for another phenomenal experience, even bigger and better than it was in 2019. So everybody, if you don't have anything going on, come out and have some fun in the Double Deuce tomorrow from 11 a.m. till 6 p.m.
All right, remember that it's going down in the Double Deuce. Alderwoman from the first, did you have your hand up and take it down, or did I miss it? I have you on my sheet, but I don't know if
you called on me already. Okay, let that Alzheimer's kicking in. Okay, I made an announcement.
I know, I remember that, but I thought I saw it pop back up.
No, sir. Thank you.
It didn't pop back up. Okay, Alderman from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. And since I've so graciously sat through some of your lecturing on our rules down here, I'd just like to remind you that even though she had her hand up, I have not yet spoken, so I get to get called first before she does.
Well, I'll leave that up to you to tell Alderwoman from the first she can't talk. I'm not going to do it.
Oh no, she can talk, but she needs to take her second turn after I get my first turn. But anyways, I'm just playing around. But I do want to make sure that everyone at the board is aware that I've scheduled a Transportation and Commerce Committee hearing for Tuesday, July 6th at 9 a.m. So that's not this coming Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. We've got several board bills pertaining to the Port Authority and Airport that we'll be hearing at that point in time. So again, that's July 6th. So it's the Tuesday following the holiday weekend at 9 a.m. So mark your calendars accordingly. And also, this is historically in St. Louis Pride Weekend. So there are a bunch of festivities taking place around town. Normally in the chambers, I would have a big spiel about that and invite everyone to participate in the festivities. However, while that's not necessarily the case for this year, there is a Pride celebration taking place tomorrow at 11 a.m. Saturday, June 26th. Trinity Episcopal Church in the Central West End is now being listed on the National Register of Historic Places for its significance and its role within our local LGBTQ community. And so it's a really wonderful milestone, not just for Trinity, but also for the LGBT community. I personally, as a young Gaby, participated in many community meetings in the basement of the church, including organizing Pride Festival back in the day. I can't believe it's been over 20 years now. But anyways, it certainly has a historic significance within the broader LGBT community, but also has a special place in my heart as well. But welcome all of you to attend that designation ceremony tomorrow at 11 a.m. And happy Pride to everyone else that isn't able to make it. Thank you.
Thank you for that announcement, Alderman from the 25th. Alderman from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I wanted to join on with the Alderman from the 25th and wishing everyone a happy Pride. There is also a celebration tonight from 3 to 7 in the Shoto Plaza, so the corner of Manchester and Sarah near the Chroma building there. Promo Missouri will be present, and there were lots of postponed or delayed or diminished events this year and last year for the pandemic. So thanks for celebrating the month of Pride, and for all of our LGBTQ folks in the city. We are proud of you. You are welcome here, and just happy Pride.
Thank you. Alderman from the 25th. First. I think that was, all right.
No, that's a new one. I have to mention this. Okay, An IUD is birth control, not abortion. An IUD is birth control, not abortion. There is a hell of a lot happening down in Jefferson City right now about women, their bodies, and healthcare. And I have to say that loud and clear, loud and clear. It is not a debate. It is not a matter of discussion. IUDs are birth control, not abortion.
All right, thank you, Alderman from the 25th for that message. All right, Alderman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move to excuse the Alderman from the 16th who says he has a very good reason, but wouldn't tell me personally, so we'll take his word for it.
The move by the Alderman from the 10th, entertain a second on that motion.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 4th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
No.
No. I don't hear any no's. Well, motion carries. Man, nobody ever votes no to that. Alderman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move that we adjourn to next Thursday, July 1st, 2021 at 10 a.m.
Moved by the Alderman from the 10th, entertain a second on that motion.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 4th, Alderman from the 4th, and Alderman from the 23rd. All in favor signify by saying aye.
No.
Aye.
Opposed, still no no's. We stand adjourned. Y'all gonna
Thanks. Have a good weekend, everyone.
speak up. All right, have a good weekend.
Have a safe weekend.